Welcome back to Inside the Polygraph with David Goldberg. Today we're inside my office talking about celebrity sexual assault cases. Welcome to Inside the Polygraph. I'm your host, David Goldberg, expert polygraph examiner. Join me as I and my guests break down the facts, fictions of polygraph testing, law enforcement, and so much more. Real cases, real conversations. The truth is always revealed inside the polygraph. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be talking about an important current event, the P. Diddy issue. Ladies and gentlemen, he is charged with sex trafficking. Guess what he's not charged with? He's not charged with having sex parties with oil. That's not against the law. What's against the law is having trafficked minors or individuals to perform inappropriate sexual acts on guests at his mansion. And I guess the biggest key that the prosecutors are going to have is this: not whether or not he had knowledge of the parties going on, but did he have hands-on, one, sexual acts with any of the minors that were in the house? Two, did he make legitimate contact and phone calls to have the sex workers or minors get transported from wherever they came to his mansion? And did he personally know that the workers that were in his home performing these sex acts were minors? If the answer to any of them or all of them is a big NO, the prosecutors are going to have a very hard time in finding P. Diddy guilty. Just because you go to a party and you witness a sex act, sort of like going to an orgy, but you don't participate in that orgy, but you watch, and you don't know who is involved in that orgy, you're not guilty. However, if you know that individual involved is an absolute minor, you know they're a minor, you participate in the act, or you have any involvement in that, for whatever involvement, you are guilty. So my assumption in all this, or opinion, is this: P. Diddy has a plethora of associates, staff who work for him and pays an awful lot of money, because money is really no object to people of that status. Like I told you, celebrity status, they burn money like it's toilet paper. They burn through it like nothing. They don't even think about it. Where you and I think, oh my God, I just, have $100 in my checking account. I got to, hold off on spending. They burn $100 as if it's, 25 cents. So with they having staff, I can just assume, and again, this is my personal opinion, everyone has one. He probably said, hey, tomorrow's Saturday, I want a party. I want you to get, the workers or get people to come to the party. I'm going to call all the A-listers to see if they want to come to a party. I'm going to call the caterers or whatever, but you do your job. Hey, make sure, John calls the oil truck, all that stuff. But if P. Diddy didn't get on the phone and say, hey, I'll make the phone calls to the sex traffickers, or I'm going to call, so-and-so and make sure that we have all 14-year-olds or all 16-year-olds coming, then, ladies and gentlemen, even though it's his facility, his house, it may not be he's responsible for the individuals that perform the sex act, he's responsible for the party, but if he's unaware that those minors were there or unaware that there were minors, he's not guilty of sex trafficking. And I'm not taking his side, trust me on that. I'm just telling you what the prosecutors have a big case to prove. And unless they do have a witness who was a participant in there that says, I personally spoke to P. Diddy, I told him I was 14 or I was 12 or I was 16 or I was under 18. I showed him my ID and he said, it's okay, you can still, come to my party and act sexual, then that's a witness. And even if they have other people that said, yeah, PD gave me the okay to make the phone calls, then that's a participant. But if he just said, yeah, P. Diddy told me to call, or I'm in charge of getting those people, P. Diddy might not have said, make sure they're under this age. He's not guilty. So it's a lot that the prosecutors have to prove in reference to the guilt of that individual. Let me know what you think and what your opinion is of the case. And if you want me to talk more about it and you want me to find out more facts, then put your comments below and I'll be more than happy to continue this conversation with you. Have you been accused of one of the following in your life, such as infidelity, custody matters, CPS investigations, or serious criminal matters that you're currently being investigated for? At Executive Protection Group Polygraph Service, we have been helping thousands of individuals for over 24 years, no matter who you are or what you have been accused of, with the highest accuracy, integrity, and overall compassion to everyone's needs. We are not your typical polygraph or lie detection service. At Executive Protection Group Polygraph Service, we are certified experts recognized in courts throughout the country, and we stand by our promise to give you full closure and all your needed answers. Call at 757-495-1301 and visit our website at www.executiveprotectiongrp.com to get started. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about current events dealing with James Murray of Impractical Jokers, who was accused of inappropriate sexual behaviors with a minor. Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about celebrities first. Who are they? They're individuals just like you and I, with the exception of they've had maybe opportunities to become those celebrities. They grew up in houses, maybe larger than you, and maybe they grew up with parents that were either celebrities, grandparents that were celebrities, uncles, aunts, whoever, and they had the opportunities to become those celebrities. When they become celebrities, what happens? We, as individuals, we elevated them to that status, which means that we provided them with the money because we followed them in their careers. We paid for their sporting events. We went to concerts. We watched their movies. And so at that point, they went to a higher level for money only. However, what is a celebrity? They're no different than you and I. They go to the bathroom the same way. They may have higher levels of toilet paper, but they're the same human beings as us, and they have the same kind of body parts as you and I, except for they may spend more money for their body parts. What I'm trying to get at, ladies and gentlemen, is when they get to that level of status, celebrities, people then become fans. And when you're a fan of a celebrity, what happens is sometimes those fans will do whatever it takes to be close to that celebrity. And when that happens, those celebrities will take advantage of the way you are. And what happens in that realm is sometimes, not always, but sometimes it becomes inappropriate behaviors and inappropriate acts upon that fan. Let's talk about James Murray and what happened there. There was a minor who at the time was 16, and in her messages to James Murray specifically said she was a huge fan of his. So right off the bat, she's saying, I'm a big, huge fan of yours. All right, so let's inflate the status of James. And so he communicates with her. I'm sure there was a lot of bantering back and forth in that conversation. Lo and behold, in the messages per her, she says that she was invited to locations where he was. She was paid gifts or bought gifts. She was given travel expenses where she was never given this before. And they talked inappropriately in reference to text messaging. And she even posted that on the forum Reddit. Now, we're unaware at this point whether or not any hands-on physical sexual acts actually occurred. However, when you know an age that's a minor and you start talking inappropriate sexual acts and you're an adult, it's not an impractical joke anymore. It's real, it's live, and you know what you're doing and you know it's wrong. Thank you for listening. Be sure to subscribe to Inside the Polygraph with David Goldberg. Thanks so much for listening. If you truly liked what you heard today, please be sure to rate the show, share with others, and subscribe for more episodes.